And today we have the lovely Anisa, who is an actor, a podcast host, and a writer. Thank you very much for taking your time and agreeing to speak to me today. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. It's really, great to hear. Sort of the idea is to speak to different South Asian artists and focus each interview on a sort of particular topic. And, speaking to you, you've obviously worked in the UK and you've worked in India as well. So what we're going to be speaking about today is sort of the differences and similarities, but also just your career in general. And I'm going to be asking you some questions that people have sent in and also touching a bit on South Asian representation. So, for the people that don't know you, if you could just sort of say a bit about yourself and sort of where did it all start for you? How did you get into the acting and obviously, your podcast?
Yeah. So the acting bug kind of bit me early. I was about 12 or 13 when I decided that acting was what I really wanted to do. And I was just taking part in school plays and just any way that I could get involved in the arts and being really shy actually as a young girl. I think it was acting and dance which sort of like forced me to gain more confidence and perform in front of people, and I just really enjoyed it. And then while I was studying, I happened to audition for something which took me to India and kind of opened that door up for me. And that specific project was something that I didn't go on to do and get, but because
Mm,
that door had opened, I thought that perhaps I should explore it.
yeah.
And at the time, I remember really struggling to also get an agent in the UK because
Mm,
I didn't traditionally take the route of going to drama school. I went to uni and did drama.
yeah.
Um, so though it was performance orientated, it wasn't completely, and a lot of people see it as theoretical and not actor training. And so it was a bit
Mm,
of a different route. But yeah, in a nutshell, I just did a lot of work out in India and I mean, Unplugged with Annie, the podcast is kind of a newish thing, I would say, the last couple of years. And it just came from the space of wanting to really connect with different kinds of people and just
mm.
giving them a platform to share their stories. And um, yeah, I guess that's what I felt a passion towards. So what essentially was a hobby now has become like another,
Yeah.
yeah.
And sort of with the podcast in particular, was there anything that kind of inspired it, or you kind of saw a lot of people doing it and it made you want to do it?
Yeah, I honestly, it wasn't really about other people. I wasn't even sure about it myself. A friend of mine just suggested, like, oh, I think you'd be really good at this. You should start one. And I was just like, oh, I just don't know anything
Yeah.
about it. And they were just like, well, it's kind of easy, you know. And my host is Anchor. So Anchor makes things quite easy for anyone to really start because
Mm.
you can record directly onto the app and they've sort of simplified the process if you're a beginner. And so I just thought, why not? And people started listening, and I just thought, okay, this is something that I'm enjoying.
Yeah.
So yeah, it essentially came from this passion of I think I'm just a real people person. So I really enjoy
Mm.
talking to people and also just hearing about their journeys and what inspired them and why they do what they do.
Yeah, so I guess it's sort of something that you kind of thought you'd try out, and then it was like, oh my God, you actually love it, and then it sort of grew from there.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I would still say that acting is the first love, but
Yeah,
this is something else creative, which yeah, I get to do.
you can do. And obviously the acting, so what kind of age did it start, and what age were you when you actually went to India?
So, in terms of, I decided when I was like 12 or 13 to actually that this is what I want to do, and then
Mm.
it was very much part of school stuff and like some fringe theatre on the side. And India happened while I was still like my uni stuff was still going on. So I think,
Okay.
yeah, I think it was around 20. Um, if I'm not wrong, around that time, 2021. And that's the time, like, so I ended up, because that specific project didn't happen that took me out there, I ended up a few months later doing a Disney show out there.
Mm.
and actually was playing a 16-year-old in the Disney show. So
Okay.
it's funny, but I think that's why everyone sort of associated me with being like this child artist, because they tend to sort of put you in that box when you start off young. But because we were playing such young characters, um, it was interesting. So yeah, it started around that time.
Yeah. So let's talk about, so you were obviously on Disney Channel in India and it was this show Ishan. Tell everyone sort of a bit about how you found that experience and I guess working on, Disney Channel in India.
Yeah, honestly, I was so excited to just be part of something at the time, and just, it was like first professional work on screen. So
Mm.
till that point, I had only done like a little bit of ad work and a little bit of really sort of, I had done a couple of sort of cameo-ish roles for Hindi films shot in London.
Okay.
Um, but I hadn't had to go there for, full-fledged for a project. And it was definitely exciting, but I was like the only girl in the primary cast, so that was a little like it threw me off a little bit, and also because I didn't know anyone really in India, didn't really know many people. So I remember my
Mm.
mum came out with me for a little while until I kind of got a flat sorted on rent, and just the simple things like a mobile phone and all these little things, because it's a completely different world. And I personally don't have any like immediate family there.
Okay.
So yeah, that was, I suppose that was a challenging aspect. But actually shooting with, I mean, we were doing crazy hours, like 18-hour days.
Oh
But
wow.
it was brilliant. When it all ended, it was really sad, because that they became like family. And at the same time it brought a lot of challenges, but challenges which I think helped me grow, like the
Mm.
language, learning the language better, and just getting to be on screen and learning how screen acting kind of worked too.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. And it's great. You were, I guess, not really forced, but in a way forced to learn the language. And I guess in the future, now you've kind of got those skills, the accent and language a bit more. You can obviously apply that to so many future roles as well.
Yeah.
Um, and what was the sort of recognition like in India? Sort of when you were out, were you sort of getting noticed? Obviously, because Disney Channel's so big. How was that kind of experience?
Yeah, around that time when Ishan was streaming, it did become quite a huge thing after season one. And we did like a little sort of city tour, and there were like t-shirts, and um, we did get stopped for like autographs when we were out, especially amongst the, obviously this was targeted towards like kids, so it was
Yeah.
that audience. Um, so yeah, if I could compare like the content to anything, it would be like a high school musical, sort
Yeah.
of, where they were singing and dancing, except we were lip syncing and not actually singing. Um, but yeah, it was really a really quite surreal, actually, that experience, but really wonderful at the same time. Like, the cast are really great friends even till date, and I think everyone's just gone on to do different things, but that connection is special.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. You've kept that connection from sort of doing that years ago, and you're still in touch with everyone. And obviously, you have worked both in India and both in the UK as well. How have you sort of found the experience of both? And would you say there's any sort of major similarities or differences?
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, I just feel like, so the UK is such a tricky one. I don't know if it's my perception. I have to constantly like challenge my belief systems around this as well, because I feel like I'm very ethnically ambiguous, or so I've been told. And my casting is very ethnically ambiguous. So even though my roots are sort of Indian, Pakistani, East Africa, where my parents were
Mm.
born, um, I'm not actually cast in those roles, even though I am from that background. And so it's a bit of a strange one. So in the UK, my casting is sort of more Middle Eastern, Irani, mixed race. But in India, it's sort of Kashmiri, or they would sort of cast me as half Indian, half English, and
Okay.
something else. And that also comes from the space of you not being born and brought up there, and therefore, even when you speak Hindi, even though I feel like I've got a really good grasp on it now,
Mm.
I think you still somewhere stick out like a sore thumb. It's a little strange. Like it's like people just know that you're not from there, even if you
Yeah.
can speak Hindi well. It's sort of one of those things. So I feel like I'm still in that space where I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I am, what my
Yeah.
past, where I fit. I think navigating the UK can be challenging because it's really formal. If you don't have an agent, you don't get to hear about certain castings. If you don't get to hear about certain castings, you don't get the auditions, you can't get in the room. It's a bit of a vicious cycle, and you don't really develop these informal relationships with casting directors or directors. Whereas in India, everything is so informal that you're likely to have friends who are casting directors, who are and they're people whose numbers you have, and that potentially
Mm.
you would meet for a coffee and nothing work related. And, there's a much more informal relationship there, which is encouraged because it's all about networking and who you know.
Mm.
And there's an aspect of that which I hate as well. So it's really strange to say, but it's like if you could combine the both, that would be the ideal situation
Yeah.
because a little bit of formality is great. I think the way agents operate in the UK, your work is handled, the contracts are really looked through. All of this really matters. Your money's come in easily. That's something they handle. In
Mm.
India, it's very different. Like the management system works different. You are kind of your own brand. Your manager is kind of just there overseeing certain things, but essentially you go out there and make and develop those relationships. So
Yeah.
that would definitely be a huge difference.
Okay, I didn't know that. So I didn't realize that India, sort of the casting world, there is a lot more sort of informal and relaxed. You sort of, I guess, you're friends with the casting directors. Um, and it's interesting. I feel like a mix of the two would be good because you do need that sort of formality. But I feel like a misconception that a lot of actors can have is that there's this massive hierarchy that, industry people and casting directors are up there and your actors are down there. Sort of having the informality can make it a little bit of a more relaxed atmosphere and sort of help that relationship between casting director and actor as well.
True, true. And I think another thing is that sort of seeps into the way of working. I think the way of working is very different here. Everything is really super organized. You'd know way in advance before a shoot, or your date,
Mm.
everything. There, everything is still a little bit like there's this organized chaos, and it works somehow, but it's definitely not like the UK. And there's um, yeah, it's just so embedded in the culture, I guess. It's just a
Yeah,
cultural thing.
I guess culture obviously does play a massive part in the differences between the two because you are going to work in completely different ways.
Hmm.
Would you say you prefer one over the other, or is it just sort of really hard to compare because they are so different?
I think it is hard to compare. I think I have a bit of a preference towards here only because I was born here, right? So
Mm.
I've done my schooling here. So the way of working here is just something that I'm so much more used to. Like, and just general things like, like, because we're so punctual and on time, and like, there it's not quite that. So
Oh gosh.
yeah, so that's the challenging part. Although when you're there and you are shooting, the chaos kind of works, and you enjoy that, and it's different as well. But yeah, I suppose it's nice. It's nice to have a bit of both.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I guess sort of you are going to sway a little bit more towards the UK, especially if you were born here. Whereas if you were sort of more born and raised in India, you may likely be more biased to there.
Right.
And going on from what we were saying about casting in the industry, a question that somebody has sent in is, how do you feel that casting directors responded to your, sorry, how do you feel that UK casting directors responded to your India work and then vice versa?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm not sure. I would say for from like, this is just my interpretation. I honestly don't think it gives me a huge advantage in any way. I think
Mhm.
people may think that or have that perception. I just think it really doesn't matter where those credits were.
Okay.
It could have been from Europe, it could have been anywhere. I think just the more credits you have or the more work you've done, you can potentially be seen as a little bit more experienced.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's given me any sort of other advantage because I think the industries are so different for sure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I guess that's sort of maybe reassuring for some people to know if they did want to move to a different country to do work, it's great to know it's more so about the credits and what you've done, not exactly, where it is.
Definitely. And I think, yeah, it's the same there as well. I think at the end of the day, you could be a new actor, but if you're perfect for that role and if you get in the room and you get an audition, I think you have a fair chance for sure.
Yeah,
So at least I like to think this,
yeah,
who knows?
so
Yeah.
definitely. Another question that someone sent in is, I guess you sort of touched on it a little bit in terms of the casting types. But working in both places, have you faced any kind of particular prejudice? And how has it been, if you have, how has it been different in the two places?
I think um, there is a bit of prejudice in the sense that it's not intentional, but I think you do get put in a box out there a little bit as being a foreigner. And
Okay.
therefore, not to say everyone does it, but there definitely is, there are some people who definitely can take advantage of that just because, okay, like more from the space of this girl isn't from here, we can try and get her to work cheaper, or
Mm,
we can,
God.
or she's not going to really demand much, or, and I think that's definitely there. I've seen that on and off, or especially people before they know I speak Hindi. There's a lot of people who just assume that I don't. So sometimes you overhear conversations and you know what's being said, and
Mm.
they don't know that you know.
Oh,
Um, so in that way, yeah, there's been a little bit of that. Here, honestly, I think it's such a tricky one because I think to a degree it might matter who you're represented by agency wise. I'm not sure. Certain agencies have certain relationships with casting directors, and especially if they're those lead roles, which I think all of us really want to go up for here.
mm.
I do sometimes think that there might be some hierarchy somewhere.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
Naturally, I'm sure, like in the typical top 10 UK agents, I'm sure there's certain advantages
Yeah.
to being with them. So in that way, but I wouldn't say that I've had, so much experience here to really know if there was anything else.
Yeah, because I have heard, especially for the kind of bigger shows that are going to get a lot of sort of popularity and views and lead roles, people a lot of the time, I mean, they do approach smaller agencies, but I think a lot of the time, because they obviously know, they are going to be really good actors on the bigger agencies, I guess for the trust element, they are going to kind of sway more towards that. But I think it is changing in the sense that they are kind of open to seeing sort of talent from smaller agencies, which is really great if you're not with a bigger one.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Like, I think in this last year, there's been enormous changes as well,
Mm.
for a lot of minority groups. But I think in the UK in general, we still have a little way to go for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
there is, and sort of, I'm going to come onto kind of the whole sort of representation and I guess how it's changed and sort of moving forwards. But before that, this is a really interesting one actually that somebody sent in. What would you say sort of the word actor or actress means personally to you? Because I feel like everyone's going to have a sort of different take, but I guess what defines you as an actor?
Wow, that is
It's kind of a big
interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think for me, I always saw it as almost like getting to wear a mask, which is great because you don't have to be yourself. That's what actually enticed me to picking acting. But in this last Yeah, I think I've just had a bit of a shift in mindset, and I don't know if it's just because of like, the workshops and the courses that I'm doing or the books that I'm reading, but I think I'm just started to see it in a different way, that it's just being able to bring truth to a role, um, and hopefully get people to connect and emote, and yeah, and just getting to play as well. I think I'm seeing it as a more just getting to play, um
Mm.
and trying to be as truthful as you possibly can.
Yeah, I really like what you said about sort of getting to play because I feel like a lot of the time with actors, when there's that pressure, people forget to have fun, and then they sort of get so much in their own head and they forget about the freedom that you have as an actor. So I think sort of getting to play is sort of a magical thing that we as actors can do. And yeah, what you said about you get to kind of play other characters as well that aren't your everyday self, which is another sort of beautiful thing about being an actor.
Yeah, and I think the way I feel like it's changed is I used to think more towards that it was really being something that you're not. You get to be something
Mm,
you're not. But what I've realized now is actually we're just so we're just all so versatile, and
yeah,
we are so layered as human beings that you're not really being anyone else. You're being you. It's just that you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable so that people can see different shades of you, and you can bring that to a part. So I think hence there's been a bit of a shift, which
yeah,
which I think is a good thing, to be honest.
yeah. No, no, definitely. And I guess it's sort of more people can think it's being someone else, but I guess, like you said, it's bringing you and then adapting it to sort of the different styles of the character.
Hmm.
Um, and in terms of your career so far, what would you say are sort of your best bits or the highlights?
Yeah, that's so tricky for me. I think it's just because I'm just like my biggest critic.
Oh, we all are. We all are.
It's like, you've got all these things that you want to do, and you're just like, I'm not there yet. I haven't
Yeah.
done that dream project yet. I haven't like I don't feel satisfied. Um, but there's been many, many like wonderful experiences for sure. I thoroughly enjoyed being part of Brahman Naman, which was an indie Netflix film, and
Okay.
um, it was just so indie, really low budget. It was actors who are really passionate about the craft, really hands on, everyone taking, like just being so willing, which reminded me about theatre actually, and just like how we do things together in theatre and how it's such teamwork.
Mm.
Because quite often in film, what happens is the budgets are bigger, there's a lot more demand, there's a lot more sort of separation and hierarchy a lot of the time. But this actually reminded me of theatre in the sense that everyone was kind of so genuinely passionate about making something, and it was quirky, and no one had any idea that it would go to Sundance and then be on Netflix. And so,
Amazing.
so yeah, I think that was just a really great experience. Got to work with some brilliant actors, and then other than that, yeah, I don't know. I think I still feel like there's so much I want to do, and I feel like I've not done the things which are really challenging to me yet.
Yeah. What would you say are like in the future? What are some of your sort of, I guess, acting goals and I guess roles that you'd like to play? We sort of find it interesting seeing what different roles people want to play.
Yeah, I think it's just roles which I think are I enjoy as an audience member seeing those roles, but also I just think they're complex, like humans are complex.
Mm,
That
yeah, yeah.
um, you get to portray different shades of who you are, and under imaginary circumstances, of course. But like one role that I love is what Rosamund Pike did in Gone Girl. That is just, I think, such a brilliant, brilliant role. And I think she's fab in these sort of more negative kind of characters. but it's so interesting, and I don't know why I'm really drawn to those, and I think it's because I feel like I'm complete opposite to other people, and
Okay, yeah.
therefore there's almost like this like rebellious side in me, which is like, yeah, but I don't want to do what you think I can do, which I think is a problem for the actor as well, because essentially the more you actually know your typecast and can do your typecast, probably the better it is from a business standpoint. But you always kind of want to do the other things, you know?
Yeah, what's different? No, that's actually really interesting you mentioned that because it was on Friday. I spoke to Balvinda Sopal, who plays Suki in EastEnders, and obviously she's this massive villain. And we were both sort of saying we both enjoy playing characters that are so different to us, and I guess that are more kind of negative. Um, and it's just, I guess, like we were saying about acting, it gives you the opportunity to play characters that you would never that are never you in real life. Because that's sort of my dream. I'd love to sort of play a villain, and I've been told my casting tab is completely different to who I am. It's just so interesting.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So yeah, that would be I would love to just get to do more of that, more like just all kinds of different things, honestly.
Yeah. And again, would that be sort of in the UK scene, the Bollywood scene, or just wherever it kind of takes you, or America as well? Just throw that in.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, wherever it takes me, I would love to do more stuff in the UK, only because at the end of the day, like from the UK, and I feel like there's so much great content happening now, and
Yeah.
I would love to do some stuff here. And of course, I think I think America, just the kind of content they're making and churning out is incredible, and just the level of acting as well is just you know, it's so inspiring that I think all of us have that on the wish list
Oh
somewhere.
yeah.
So yeah, definitely the UK and the US would be a dream.
Yeah. Have you managed to do much stuff in the US, or that's somewhere that you want to sort of explore?
Not really. I had to shoot in the US for a few days for a Hindi film,
Okay.
and then I did go out to the US just to promote a documentary short, which was actually about well, it was actually by this organization called Hope Be Lit, who support kids with cancer. So the documentary was kind of around this subject, and therefore went out and did a bit of promotion. But I've not really worked out there or shot a full-fledged project out there.
Yeah. Well, that's great. You still had, I guess, a few days there to give you a little bit of a taste of what it might be like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like because it's Hollywood, a lot of us have that on our list. But yeah, it's interesting. I've heard sort of mixed things about the US because some people say, especially for minorities, that people are actually getting more opportunities out there that they got in the UK. And then some people are saying that like going to LA is such a massive jump and they kind of want to settle in the UK first. So it's a really interesting one. I haven't really explored it that much, but definitely at some point want to explore Hollywood.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. No, I've heard that too. So yeah,
Mm,
it's a tricky one.
yeah. And sort of going on about sort of representation that we were speaking about before. Um, Personally, what do you think that needs to be done about, I guess, South Asian representation, but representation in general going forwards? And who would you say needs to be doing that? Would you say it's us, casting directors, people at the top, or a mix?
Yeah, gosh, I just think that so my perception is really that I feel like I don't know why. I mean, like maybe it's fair for me to say it being an Asian,
Yeah.
otherwise it might just not come across right. But I just feel there's a lack of kind of unity in the community, and also the sense of celebrating each other. So there's also a perception by the Asian community that there is such a lack of these roles, and therefore it's sort of like, you know, the best man wins.
Mm, yeah.
Whereas the Black community, what we've seen in the last year because of Black Lives Matter, and in general, I find that they're very much united. So what I've personally observed is that there's a real backing of each other. If one person's doing some great work, everyone supports them. You know, there's this genuineness of being able to celebrate another's success. And I'm not sure that that's there in all the other minority communities. So I feel like that is one thing we all need to be doing and taking responsibility of. But other than that, I think it's a bit of a mix which is needed, honestly. Of course, casting directors, I think more and more are challenging representation. But I think further at the top from the stance of producers, I think they have to also be willing, like producers and studios, for that, you know, give the casting director permission to you know, cast outside the box as well, because at the end of the day, they're hired by producers or whoever to go and take control of the casting. So, you know, there's limited control for everyone, I think. Yeah, that's what I would say.
No, I could completely echo everything you said. I think it sort of does need work from everyone kind of in the industry. And I guess people at the top, they do have, you know, the casting directors can push as much as they can. And, you know, from conversations that I've seen, you know, casting directors seem to be doing a lot for sort of representation. It's more so the people at the top. And I guess at the end of the day, they do have the ultimate say. So I think once we start breaking the more barriers at the top, then, you know, pave the way for more and more of us. And yeah, I think a lot of other South Asians would agree in the sense that the Black community in general, but in the arts, are more unified. And I feel like this year in particular, though, I guess with lockdown and all the networking groups, I have seen a lot more sort of South Asians supporting each other. So I think it is growing. And I feel like we all feel that when one of us rises, you know, we all kind of rise. But then there is that little bit of competition. So I think if we kind of figure out a way to break that competition, it's always going to be there being like, oh, I want that role. But I guess it's also, if there are more of our faces out there, there is going to be less competition because it's like, okay, I can do that as well.
True, true. Yeah, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Like, yeah, I think from all the work, you know, you're doing even with South Asian artists and just bringing people together, I think it's definitely become apparent that, you know, where we are unified in a way that, you know, we want to work together and support each other. I do think that we need to also step up in the sense of not waiting for people to give us roles and actually coming together and actually, you know, starting to create stuff which maybe then we can pitch, starting to write stuff. And honestly, this wasn't my perception a couple of years ago, but I think now more than ever, I think there is an opportunity, you know, I think Michaela Cole is just such a great example of you know, in like I May Destroy You, and just her work is incredible, but not just as an actress, you know, she's done everything. So I think that's super inspiring. And then obviously you've got Riz Ahmed and Dev Patel, who are really kind of the Brits who are really rising now more than ever, even though they've been in the industry for years, you know. So it just goes to show that it probably hasn't been easy even for them, even though they've done the big Hollywood films. So yeah.
Yeah, and I guess sort of they may, I don't know if it's sort of pressure, but I feel like we are seeing the sort of people higher up within the South Asian community doing more things, you know, everything that Riz Ahmed has done the past year. I hadn't seen that done before. So I think more and more people are realizing, I guess, the power sort of their platform. And more people seem like that they want to sort of connect, and sort of what you mentioned about, you know, the roles aren't there for us. So if we sort of collaborate and start making them for us, that's a sort of a way to get more work for us as well.
Yeah, I think Riz recently said it in a podcast or interview as well, that the funny thing is, you know, he's been doing the work for so long, even in, you know, hugely commercial movies like Venom, but when he did a Mughal Mowgli, which was so personal because, he actually co-wrote it as well. I think it just there's a different narrative when you're writing your story.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is, isn't it? Because your perfect casting is actually your story. As much
Yeah.
as you want to play the opposite, it's a weird thing.
I guess you've got, I guess, the power of control over your story, but you can also bring that authenticity, which is, I guess, a power that you can have as an actor as well.
True, for sure.
Cool. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you just some like fun fire run questions. My final question, just to sort of end with, is obviously having worked in the industry, what piece of advice would you give to people either in the industry or starting out?
Gosh, don't be so harsh on yourself because I tell you what, like in this last year, there's so much that I've learned that I wish I knew at the beginning. Like, I wish I
Yeah,
really knew how to do it. We hear all the time, things like don't take rejection personally and don't, but then, we're not really told how you do that. And I really think how you do that is just understanding that you are enough as you are, like you don't
yeah,
need to be anyone else, that you're unique and you are enough. And B is try not get attached to the outcome. I think that's another way we can do that is when we've done the work in the audition room, we have to just let go and forget it, as hard as it is.
yeah,
um, just knowing that our job's done, we've done our best, whatever that was. Because if we're constantly trying to do it according to what we think they want, we're not really giving anything authentic, right? So, and I feel like I had that perception for the longest time, and it's only in this last year where I'm just like, okay, this makes sense. Like, I can make my choice, and for someone it's going to be right and for someone else it's not going to be right, and that's okay. um, so I would say, especially if you're starting out, because I know I've been so hard on myself, for sure, that don't be so hard on yourself. Yeah.
yeah. And I feel like as actors, but people in general, we are always going to be our own worst critic, and because we know ourselves the best. After an audition, you'll think, "Oh God, why did I say that? Why did I do it like that?" And it's probably not as bad as you think. And I guess if you've given the best performance you can, then it's like it's completely out of your control now. There's nothing more you can do. So just leave it in the hands of the people, and they'll either love it or they'll call you back for something else.
Yeah.
And what you said about, I've seen actually, I think casting directors have quoted this recently that obviously there is no other version of you. So you can bring to a character something that somebody else can't. So I guess you sort of really sort of get in tune with who you are, and then you can bring that authenticity.
Right, exactly. And yeah, I think you said it perfectly. I think it's getting to know yourself. If you can do, it's not just about taking the acting classes,
Yeah,
whatever else you can do for you is really important, whether it's going out there and having life experiences or building new relationships, learning a new skill, whatever it is, all of this really matters, even though you think it doesn't. I think spending time with yourself only boosts your confidence when you know who you are, and the
yeah,
more you do that, the more you can actually tap into that in an audition room.
exactly. And it will show through as well to people you're working with, and when you're performing, when you are sort of really in tune with yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, we're just going to go on to just some fire round questions. They're going to be just really random.
Okay.
Just a fun thing to end on. Okay, so if you could only eat anything for the rest of your life, one thing, what would it be?
Oh gosh. Um, oh man, I think fries. I love fries. Like fries, although that's not the healthiest choice at all, but yeah, fries.
That's a good choice. Okay, if you could either go back in time or into the future, what would it be? That's a really hard one. I don't even know what I would do.
Oh my gosh. Oh God, I think I would go back in time when I was really young. I feel like I don't know if I can pinpoint an age, but you know where it's just like you're just you're carefree
Yeah,
and you see pictures of yourself like as a kid and you were just like, oh my gosh, I wish I savored that moment.
I would I would happily go back, but there was like no responsibilities. We were just free as kids.
Yeah.
It's a good choice.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, this is a big one, but what is your favorite experience that you've had in life? Sorry, there's probably so many, but if you can
Wow.
sort of like pick one or a couple, I'll let you.
Gosh, these are really getting me to think. Um, Favorite experience. Oh, um, wow.
Put you on the spot.
I know. I go, oh gosh, that's really
Or just
hard.
like maybe a memorable one, because that's, I
A
guess, quite a
memorable
big one.
one.
Just like one that's like really resonates with you.
Yeah, I think for me, doing the Disney show was so special, especially when we got to do the tour and we would just like in different cities, we would actually perform some of the songs on stage and just seeing like the shared joy of people who, especially the kids who were following the show, who would just absolutely like knew all the songs and I think like you know it's just it gives you a glimpse of what it might feel like to be like a pop star, you know, like
Yeah,
you know you just see these incredible shows that they do and you're just like wow that's it's amazing to have that kind of support and following as well I guess to a certain degree but it's incredible seeing what you know to actually be part of work and then seeing what that does to other people. I think that feeling is just
yeah.
super cool.
Seeing the impact that you can have on people through your work.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I've got two more.
Okay.
So, if you could be any animal, what would you be and why?
Oh my gosh. This is a good one. I can't believe I've not thought
Yeah.
of this one. An animal. Oh man. That's crazy. I need to think about it from every angle because
Yeah,
I'm like, if I'm that animal though, what kind of food
gonna
would I
have.
eat and what kind of
Yeah.
um oh man, I don't know. Maybe I really I absolutely love I do love horses and I really loved horses when I was younger. So maybe a horse.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I'm not sure what other reason
Yeah,
you could give
oh,
for
that's
it.
a good one though. Okay, final one. If you could say one thing to your younger self, what would that be?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I guess it's similar to I guess it's a little bit similar to, you know, what, yeah, in terms of what advice I would give to actors as well, is just not be too hard on myself. Like embrace the things which I think is like weird or I think is not right. Kind of embrace it more, you know, because I think there's so much of your life you you're trying to be someone else, you're trying to be like someone else, you're comparing yourself to others. Um, so yeah, if I could really go back and change something, it would be this for sure. So I would definitely tell that to my younger self.
No, that's what I would say because like when you sort of embrace, I guess your quirks, that is going to resonate with people who you didn't think it would resonate with. So
Yeah,
definitely,
absolutely.
that's a good one to end on. Well, thank you very much for joining me in my second South Asian artist in conversation with South Asian artists. It's been really lovely hearing about your career so far and obviously sort of working in India compared to the UK. And yeah, what you sort of spoke about how the industries are different and the casting director, that's going to be sort of interesting for people to hear about. Just to let everyone know that this will be out on Wednesday, the 17th, and also keep an eye on my socials because I will be announcing more guests to come. But yeah, I just want to say a massive thank you for joining us and hope you sort of enjoyed speaking with me.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. Thanks for
Yeah.
allowing me to be part of this and your platform. And yeah, the questions were really great. So I love great conversations. I mean, this is
Yeah.
exactly why the podcast started. So I love it. I love what you're doing.
No, thank you very much. And again, thank you to everyone who has submitted questions in as well. All right, well, I'll see everyone in the next episode.